Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. The fly you see in the vise is an olive version of Jim Crawford's Father Jack. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H230 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's on a medium wire and it's finished in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's the Nano Silk at 6/0. As you can see, it's white. As always with the Nano Silks, we're going to get a small touch of super glue onto the shank of the hook. This just prevents body rotation in the fly once it's finished. So I'll spread the super glue, I'll catch in at the eye, and I'm going to get a bed down onto the shank. And then when I get near the end there, I can come in and take away my rat's tail. Now this is a relatively simple fly to tie. It's very effective when the fish are in the upper layers of the water. Because of its profile, it tends to stay quite high in the water, depending on what line you're fishing, of course. So the rib I'm going to be using today is mirror tinsel. It's 0.8 millimeters. It's just a sort of pearl. This one's the Mirage Iris, and I have some here that I cut off earlier. Now as the weather does start to warm up, despite the rain, the weather is warming up, the fish will start to come higher up in the water column to feed on various hatching insects, and amongst them will be various olive type buzzers and patterns. So what I'm using here for the body is from Trout Stalkers. It's a hybrid bug, which basically means it's a mix of squirrel and synthetic materials, so it's going to have some floatant qualities about it. It's not just pure squirrel, which would sink quite quickly. It's got some nylons in there and various colours. Very interesting dubbing. Sadly not available at the moment, but I'm sure you can make your own with your own synthetic and natural dubbings. So I'll just get plenty onto my thread there, and then I can come around and start to build my body. Now I want this body to come up to the thorax area, and that's worked out probably just about perfectly. Unusually, that's good. So the next thing I want to do is bring my rib up, and the first turn of the rib is going to go onto the shank of the hook, like so, and then I'm going to, in open turns, bring it up through the body, and my goal is to try and get 3 turns onto the body of the fly. And then when I bring it onto the thorax area here, I can simply catch that in with my thread, like so, and then I can remove my excess. Now before I go on, what I want to do is come in with my little Velcro brush, or what's left of the Velcro brush should I say. It's another thing that needs to be renewed. There's a long list getting actually, but this will do for this one fly. So as you can see, I've scruffed it out again. This is going to help with slowing down the descent in the water. So if you've ever seen a pattern called the shipman's buzzer, it's pretty much this, basically, with 2 breathers either side, and usually seal's fur is the body. So we've got that done. The next thing I want to do is add in some breathers. Now for this, for me, there's only one thing to use, and it's the Uphaven breather yarn. It's so thin, it just makes doing this job so easy, whereas trying to separate other flosses and yarns can be a pain. So what I'll do is I'll just get 1 turn just to hold it into place, and what I want to do is get two strands of the breather yarn coming forward like so, and I can bring that back out the way. Now I don't want to keep it long, it just gets in the way, and what I want with this is about 1/8 of an inch, so maybe 2.5 millimeters. So excuse my fingers, I'll come in and just take that away, and then I've got my little breather there. Now for the wing buds, I'm using some goose biots. Now what I've done is I've taken these goose biots, and at the thick end I've created a little point. Now you can use jungle cock for this, I suppose, but you might not have that available to you, whereas goose biots is cheap and cheerful and should be available to everyone. We'll use the goose biots, and I think the original Father Jack actually uses goose biots. Now I've got that a little long there, so I'm just going to try and pull it. I've got too many wraps in. Just come back a little and just pull it so I get it to the length I want. Now what I've got to do is with my other one, which I've done the same to, I've cut a little point in at the thicker end. I want it to be the same length as this one, so I'm just going to use that finger to hold it down into place, and then I can come over the top, and I think I've got that how I want it. So it looks good your side, and it's just not quite right my side, funnily enough. Usually this is the tougher side to get right. So once I'm happy I've got it where I want it, I'm going to really clamp down onto this now, and then I can grab the tips of the biot and simply helicopter the excess away. Keep tension on your thread while you do this. If you don't, it can loosen if you haven't got enough thread wraps in. I've got a little bit hanging over there. I'm not going to overly worry about it. I'll tidy it up with a thread, and then what I can do is come back to where I want to start my thorax, and that's still looking not too shabby. So what I've got here is some trout line buggy dubbing. It's called Bug 5. I know it's not very descriptive, but basically it's not seal's fur, but it does seem to have similar properties to seal's fur. I'll just hold that up so you can see it's a darker colour than what I've used for the body, which will give the impression of the thorax. Now before I dub it onto the thread, I'm going to use some of this stuff. Now if I'm dubbing with seal's fur and this has similar properties, I tend to use some of this sticky wax. It just helps to get the dubbing to stick to the thread, which makes life a little easier. And then I'll get a little bit dubbing on. I might have too much on here, but I'll see how I get on as I go. And because I've used the wax, if I have got too much dubbing, it can be a wee bit of a pain to get it off. But we'll see how we get on. So I'm going to bring it forward to create that thorax, and it's worked out not too bad for me actually. So I'm going to pull the breather back out the way. I'm going to get 2 turns in on the eye. Now I don't want to go in with super glue once I've actually whip finished, so what I'm going to do is just get a tiny touch of super glue, doesn't need to be much, onto my thread, so when I whip finish the fly is effectively finished. So again, I'll reiterate, it might look quite impressive. Well, I think they look very impressive flies, but they are not difficult to tie, and they can be as scruffy as you like. In fact, the scruffier they are, the better they fish. Can be fished in teams, can be fished on a washing line, and you won't be disappointed with the results. So there you go. If you're looking to keep your flies in the top 2 or 3 feet of water, you won't go far wrong with one of Jim Crawford's Father Jacks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.